Connor's Degrassi Unpopular Opinions.
Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Connor Diamond with the Degrassi mascot, Miss Tink, who is a 20-year-old munchkin cat. Maybe you must know. So Tink and I would like to welcome you to the 100th Degrassi Unpopular Opinion. So anyway, we've been through 100 Degrassi Unpopular Opinions and all that. So the next video you'll see is the 101st episode of Degrassi Unpopular Opinions, where we basically talk about the 100 unpopular opinions / hot takes that I have done in the playlist. Of course, I'll give you the playlist stuff, but you know, it's just to see what you got here. So anyway, Tink is kind of a shy kitty, so she gets very spooked around visitors and all that. So yeah, you know, she's getting old, so she's an old kitty. Such an old kitty. Okay. You old kitty. You old kitty. You're such an old kitty. So anyway, remember when I started this whole Degrassi Unpopular Opinions thing way back when? I'm just going to look at my playlist to see when I threw the first Degrassi Unpopular Opinion around. Because I did it like a prologue. I know there's two different versions of the... Well, yeah, I guess Paige and Mr. O were the first one. Although I might change that to the first one. This was the first one. So... Okay, May 19th, 2020 was when that happened. So I've done 100 Degrassi Unpopular Opinions in roughly 17 months. That's pretty impressive, don't you think? So yeah, so I've done 17 months of this. So that's about 6 a month, if you will. There were some I had to delete too, because, you know, they were irrelevant, or I basically have done that more times than not. So anyway. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm stroking Tink, so. Sorry, I'm just trying to prove to people that I'm, like, you know, petting you and not in a sexual act. And I think your usefulness is done, Tink, so. Ow. So wave bye-bye to the boys and girls. Okay, relax. You may go, Tink. Sorry about that. Cats will be cats. So anyway, the first unpopular opinion I did was basically about the whole fact that the students should be blamed for the Rick Murray situation. Well, I'm going back to that philosophy with the 100th unpopular opinion. But this is actually an opinion based off somebody called Gladys Butterscotch, who said, this is Rick / Spinner, no lesson learned. So, this is her words. I'll start this off by saying that what Rick did to Terry was horrible. I am making no excuses for what he did to her. The only one that could have forgiven him is Terry herself. Same with the shooting. It was a traumatizing event that affected a lot of people at the school. No excuses for him. Moving on, Terry had left, and Rick was still there trying to better himself and live. But every day he was bullied and reminded of his mistakes. My issue is that he was bullied by people that didn't even know Terry. They just saw someone everyone hated and decided that he was the easiest target because people had already hated him. Spitter was one of the many kids that bullied Rick. Spitter had good reason. Terry was the one that got away. He was also one of the 2 people who found Terry when she got hurt. Of course, Paige being the other one. All that mixed with teen angst, Spitter made the perfect bully. You know, the day of the shooting, Spitter had turned into a bit of a dick that season and hung out with the wrong crowd. A crowd that egged on the bully even though they didn't even know or care about Terry. They knew it was fun, but they took it too far, completely unaware of how far they could push someone. After Spitter came clean to Jimmy, it was like rewinding Rick's entire storyline. He had done something terrible. He had no idea of the repercussions. All his friends since the beginning turned on him. He had nobody. Jimmy's reaction was understandable. However, everyone else did nothing to stop the bullying. Spender may have tipped the scale, but they're easily also to blame for the end result. Even Paige, who barely escaped by apologizing in the nick of time. I know that the entire situation was avoidable, and you can only push someone so far, even if you don't realize how far. I just feel that no one looked at the big picture, the big lesson, and what happened to Rick, or even took responsibility for pushing him to that point. So I'm going to read out the comments people said. Of course, I give my take later. But anyway, Past Responsibility said, it was avoidable, but I think you're looking from a biased perspective of 2021. Bullying was taking way less serious back then, so we could say it was avoidable. But during that time, bullying was a norm and just kept under the rug. I mean, yeah, it was a different era because, the principal Radich kept it under the rug and all that. The principal's response summarized adults' response at the time. It takes two to tango. Someone said, it bothered me that Spinner had this really mature moment in season 3 where he almost beat Rick up after seeing him waiting in his mom's car about to leave Degrassi, but ran off, admitting to Rach he didn't want it to be seen as just like him, violent, only the change after seeing him again. There's a lot of dissenting opinions. Spinner took a major level in Jericho's, becoming somehow worse than ever after everything the past 2 seasons. Manny got a bit of this when she literally out of nowhere has a thing for Spinner, which feels like a plot point for the sake of making Spinner a repugnant asshole. Basically, most of their relationship took place off screen. It never made sense for Manny to suddenly be into Spinner, which was unlike her home-wrecking Ashley and Craig, where she actually had a crush for Craig for the moment she saw him and dated him the year prior. She was basically relegated to background character the entire season up until the Kevin Smith episodes. And someone said, the Spinner thing in season 4 makes sense to me. While all his friends are becoming more mature people, Spinner is just his immature self. He could have reined himself in, but Jay said, you're right to be an immature jerk, and all your friends are in the wrong. Yeah, they talk about Manny and all that. Not to mention the fact that Spinner and Paige were together for so long, almost since the beginning. It was out of habit. And he and Terry never had a chance in the earlier seasons. And the interaction started out of freaking nowhere. And then someone said, well, Spinner's interest in Manny does make sense. She's just like Paige, but a little more loose and free. He's probably attracted Spinner. Paige was working and busy a lot, which played in them drifting apart. No excuse for cheating, though, just pointing things out. So it said Rick should never have been allowed to do Degrassi. Everyone knew good and well him being there would upset other students. And while physical violence isn't justified, it was obvious him being at school was toxic. Yeah, and the OP, the original poster said, not to mention it was basically history repeating himself. The principal was the same one as in the 80s in Degrassi High. A kid brought a gun to school and took his life in the bathroom. Snake, a.k.a. Mr. Simpson, was the one who found him there. You'd think that the principal would have realized the signs of, or at least taken precautions. And people thought Alex was awful. Her home situation was awful, and she was a terrible person. She almost ruined Paige's career and all that. It bothered me so much that Alex's role was never addressed. She was never repentant or even faced consequences. I thought the writers consulted an expert on teenage behavior to highlight how systems and bystanders are complicit in these kind of tragedies. I think they're successful. They were successful. Yeah, a lot of people said that the whole Jay and Alex thing. So no lesson learned. When I started the whole Degrassi and popular opinions thing, this was the first thing I figured about the school shooting and the fact that, the students bullied Rick and, what repercussions did they face? Individually, they didn't really face much. The only people who individually faced consequences were Spinner and Jay. Alex didn't face consequences. Practically the fact that, Alex has to thank her lucky stars, and she should really, really, really be thanking Spinner and Jay for keeping their mouth shut and letting her lead a normal life in Degrassi. I know that she probably may have gotten lucky with everything, But maybe Hatzalakos does actually suspend her, but doesn't want to expel Alex because that would be bad for women's rights. I don't know. But Alex definitely should have come clean with everybody. I mean, what happened to her coming clean when she told that Jay on the Monday in Back Black that she needed to go through, she needed to say something about this? I mean, did Jay really get on her nerves and all that? I think Jay pretty much did. But I mean, the students, like, they bullied Rick. It's hearsay. Paige and her friends, obviously, Paige being the queen bee, spread the rumors around that Rick is not to be had. Like, nobody should be anywhere near Rick. I mean, Rick didn't really have a lot of people advocating for him. I mean, Emma did, but Emma was on the other side of the coin too. I mean, Emma was a bully in a sense. I mean, I know that the Orange Ribbon campaign was basically about domestic violence and all that crap. And everyone knows that, you can kind of blame Emma for the Orange Ribbon campaign. I mean, Emma should be lucky that the Orange Ribbon campaign didn't get to the ire of the cops and all them. Because I think the cops probably would have investigated further. But the whole fury, and the person was right about the two eras, is that, this is, when this was aired in 2004, things for bowling were a whole lot different than they are now in 2021, or what's supposed to be in a sense. When I did the unpopular opinion, and when I talked about Devin Selvey and all that, is that, he and Rick had similarities and a lot of differences, especially with the fact that Devin's mother knew that her son was bullied, but yet the school didn't do anything about it. But yet, Mrs. Murray was very, very negligible and very blissfully ignorant about her son's problems because, Rick never told anyone about his problems. I mean, he kind of did, but got shooed off by Radich. I mean, Radich was correct in the sense that, Rick should not have said, Rick was only after Jimmy trying to be his best friend and all that. I just wish Rick was more straightforward, because if Rick was way more straightforward in the sense that Radich probably would have, at worst, just say, if this keeps happening, Rick, come back and see me. But of course, Radich is a concrete thinker, and he really pissed off a lot of people by shooing Rick away. But the fact of the matter with Rick is that he kind of dug his own grave. No pun intended, of course. And, he came back to the school after being painted and feathered and everyone laughing at him. I mean, not everyone laughed at him, but he did it. And he brought the gun back to the school, into the school, which was shocking because, what was he going to do? When we saw him with the gun, it's like, what the heck's going on? And then, of course, part 2 happens. Everything happens in part 2. I feel in a strange way that Rick did himself in. Of course he would do himself in. But the students, like, who had a legit claim that Rick, they needed to get rid of Rick? Spinner for sure, because, Spinner and Paige for sure, because Spinner and Paige were both, they both saw Terry hurt and could have run after Rick with the blood on his hands, but they knew that the important thing is to get Terry in the hospital and have her not die, which luckily she never did. So, yeah, in a sense. And then you got yourself, like, Jimmy and Hazel. Like, Jimmy, Hazel, Spinner, and Paige made a pact that when Terry comes back to Rick in Don't Dream Is Over, to keep an eyeball on Rick and his influences on Terry. I think Jimmy and Hazel were kicking themselves, too, for that. And Jimmy did bully Rick. Jimmy was one of the people who put Rick in a dumpster. I always thought it was Jay and Spinner, but no, it was Jimmy and Spinner who put Rick into a dumpster, and then the next day he spray paints everyone's car with a circle and X. So, in a way, a lot of people probably think that Jimmy being put in the chair, like when he says all that stuff to Spinner, is that maybe he thinks being put in the chair was a way of punishing Jimmy for what he did to ride Rick very hard, and that it was karma punishing him for what he did to Rick. But of course, as we all know, that he was shot because Jay and Spinner tricked Rick into thinking Jimmy had something to do with it. But of course, they didn't know that Rick had a gun. And then Spinner, of course, put two and two together and wanted to tell somebody, but Jay said no way because Jimmy's not your friend anyway. And Jay's right. I mean, Spinner really did himself in. I know he was kind of a bully, but this took the cake for him. Like Alex, did she have a reasonable idea to get rid of Rick? In a sense, yes. I mean, Alex had the right of way because her mother was victimized by her ex-boyfriends. Well, her mother's ex-boyfriends, and Alex was sick and tired of having to deal with the fact that her mom's ex-boyfriends beat her up. And Alex has to help her mother go to sleep, cry herself to sleep, and then bandage her wounds up, and are in women's shelters. Like, I just wish that Alex had that point painted across more so, because I think we would give Alex more sympathy. But the fact of the matter is that Alex pictured Rick as the embodiment of all her mom's ex-boyfriends. And she wanted to destroy her mom's ex-boyfriends for hurting her. And so Rick was the perfect embodiment. So that's why she wanted to destroy Rick. It had nothing to do with simplicity. It was just that, Rick was an abuser. Once abuser, always abuser. And I just wish that Alex got the point across. I think only Emma knew about Alex's problems with her mother. I mean, okay, fair. But Alex was a bully through and through to the end. I mean, there's no excuse for bullying Rick and all that. But, she should always, as I said, thank Jay and Spinner for taking the fall for her. Like, I think Alex would not have gotten in a lot of trouble because Alex wasn't in the bathroom when Jay and Spinner told Rick about Jimmy's involvement to basically get Jimmy off Rick's Spinner scent. Spinner scent off Jimmy. I mean, Spinner, what the fuck? Why did you brag to Jimmy about the painted feathers before this ever happened? That's kind of stupid, don't you think? But, of course, the deleted scene also said there was another reason why Spinner was in trouble. Because, well, it says Raj knows. But we're led to believe that maybe Jimmy will narc on Spinner. But also, it's because But, like, in the deleted scene, Raj saw Spinner mock Rick and basically wanted to destroy Spinner for a 3:30 talk. I just wish that Raj realized he made an appointment to talk to Spinner. And Spinner probably would have spilled his guts. And Jay and Alex probably would have been in trouble too. But I don't know why Spinner would destroy Alex. I don't think he wanted to destroy Alex at all. Like, why would he? And why would Jay? Because Jay has a hard on for Alex, if you will. And Emma, though. Like, Emma was a bully. Yes, she was on that end. Yes, her orange ribbon campaign kind of led to bullying and all that. But Emma did the right thing by protecting Rick and all that, realizing that her orange ribbon campaign is making things worse. She knew she had to stop it at the risk of being ostracized by the school. I mean, how many people hung out around her except for the Quiz Bowl team? Toby, Rick, and Heather Sinclair, who would be replaced by Jimmy. I mean, a lot of people probably think that Emma's gonorrhea was actually punishment for her role in the Rick Murray situation. But I doubt it because, after all, Emma did realize, oh, fuck, what I'm doing, this is wrong of me, and she turned tail. Of course, she didn't win any prizes from the school, and the school basically ignored her. I mean, she lost Liberty and Manny as friends because of her pettiness over Chris dating Liberty. And as I said, Emma deserves to get shunned for that. I mean, Emma's not blameless. But the fact of the matter is that, Emma obviously was easily drawn to Paige's clique because she wanted friends. She wanted somebody to hang out with. And she didn't have a backup plan after Liberty and Manny left her. I think Liberty, in a sense, forced Manny not to talk to Emma because, in that episode, Mercy Street, in the subplot about the hot tub and all that, Manny says that Emma should come over to the hot tub and all that. And Liberty basically tells her not to. So, my thinking is that maybe Manny did want to talk to Emma and all that, but Liberty pulled her away. And Manny just went, whatever. I mean, Emma deserved some kind of karmic retribution, but gonorrhea is not one of them. I mean, a lot of people probably say, did she get gonorrhea because she didn't tell anybody about her pain? Like she kept everything secret. That's kind of pathetic. I think Emma getting gonorrhea was a way, in a way, it actually worked out for Emma because it got Emma out of her zombie Emma phase that I've been talking about. So she started doing okay. Well, and then she went into the boy crazy phase, which I kind of hate because, the first boy she's crazy about is Peter. And despite the fact that Peter had put Manny through the ringer with her topless video and all that, she still wants to date Peter. And it's like, is the Rick Murray situation because of that? Possibly. I mean, Emma didn't have any friends. She didn't even have a boyfriend at the time. So maybe Emma thinks that if she has friends and maybe a boyfriend, and if someone similar to Rick wants to attach themselves to her, that she could easily fend that kid off and say that, oh, I got a boyfriend, I don't really need you anymore. Although some people would probably say that it wouldn't work out that way because, I mean, Emma probably might have still had problems because, Rick would have still probably destroyed her. Who knows? So, yeah, a lot of the students basically jumped on the bandwagon, if you will. Now, there is a good reason why they probably did, and that's the administration. When I first did my video, I never said this, like I said, all the statement about the bandwagon hopping and all that stuff. However, I did not state. Now, this is between the time that, the first unpopular opinion and the 100th, which is today, goes out, is the fact of the matter is that this point was finally raised. It said that the students' mob mentality may be because of the administration not willing to help them out. And it makes sense because what we're led to believe is that, Radich saying, oh, yeah, his hands are tied, but he says it in a deleted scene. Like, it would have been nice to have the original stuff in. Like, CTV and the Nick ruined everything. Because, I mean, then maybe Radich would get less hatred or more hatred, depending on your side of the coin. The simple fact is that Radich refused to do anything. He got Marco and Alex pissed off because, they were student council president, vice president, trying to prevent Radich from doing a stupid thing. But Radich said, oh, my hands are tied because, there's no criminal charges. And obviously Radich would probably not want anyone to give criminal charges because then that means that they're going to undermine him and get past him. Radich, to me, had the sensibility of the fact that after Emma's campaign against him, and after the fact that Emma called him out on his quote-unquote policies, that Radich needed to bring the school back. Some people like me think that maybe Radich's Saturday morning detention stuff was a way to send the message to the students that I'm in charge, you never undermine my authority. I mean, I'm surprised that he didn't destroy Emma for the false report of Sean stealing the stuff but I also think that, he was worried that Sean was going to destroy Emma. So I guess in a way, he was anti-Sean and anti-Emma. He still had the feelings because when he told Emma to stay out of this, it's not one of your stupid crusades. Are you serious, Radich? Do you not realize that A, it is a serious crusade, and B, that Emma will use this as a rally point to destroy you? And that's what happened. I wouldn't be surprised if Raj basically wanted to pin things on Emma. But he also had to remember that Snake is Emma's stepfather and also knows that Snake may be his only true ally and that Radich needed Snake as a true ally. Because if he got in trouble, then Snake would be the only one to get him out of situations. But no. Yeah. So the simple fact is that, the two different eras and all that. I just wish I knew what would happen in the Rick Murray situation in 2021 compared to 2004, because I think this would have definitely been nipped in the bud. I mean, there's also a lot to blame to push around. I mean, Rick's mom's not immune to this bullshit. Rick's mom also had a problem. And the problem with Rick's mom was that she was very blissfully ignorant. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, sorry. I had something that was supposed to start and all that. Regardless of that. And yeah, I'll put that error in because of, laughing at myself. So the simple fact is that, it's all in the mind. I mean, Rick's mom should have been pressing Rick to go to another school. She said that in Time Stand Still Part 1, but she should have kept pushing him, even push him to say, Rick, is there something wrong with you? But I think she was just blissfully ignorant. And Rick was living in his own fantasy world. And all that. Yeah, the students got punished with the zero tolerance policy. But that didn't really last as long. I think there was a lot of evidence that zero tolerance didn't really work in Degrassi after season 4. So it's just a moment thing. I personally think that behind the scenes, the school board cut Degrassi's budget. Because, the school board probably had to pay Rick's parents off or basically they had to pay Raditch off because they figured that if they fired Raditch could have snapped and turned things around on the school board, saying that it's their fault, and the school board would have been in deeper trouble. So that's why Raditch was reassigned, not fired. But that's just for another day. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this retrospective look at the 100th Degrassi Unpopular Opinion. Of course, the next video I'll talk about the 100 Degrassi Unpopular Opinions that I have done and all that. So, yeah, stay tuned because it's going to be one heck of a ride. Well, Unpopular Opinions / hot takes. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Diamond. I just wish Tink was around to say goodbye to you, but she's probably ticked off. So anyway, sayonara.